Alright, so we're about to take a look at a high heroic build with Iron Man. This is honestly my personal favorite because you can set a skill that allows you to, when you defeat enemies with a unibeam, that they'll drop heroic orbs. Now, this is very, very good. Where is it? Here it is. So, enemies defeated with a unibeam will drop a heroic orb. Now, when you level up your heroic stat as high as I have, the unibeam is just going to rip through everything. So you're going to be able to rip through waves of enemies, and then when you kill them, they're going to drop a heroic orb, and what's that's going to do? You're going to pick up all those heroic orbs, and your unibeam's going to be back instantly. So it's almost like an infinite unibeam type build. But as you can see, stats on the right. So our proficiency is 124, our Valor is 451. So the Valor is what you're mainly going to be wanting to look at, right? The proficiency, however, you also want to try to get proficiency wherever you can, because the critical chance on this build especially is going to help out, in my opinion. When it comes to high heroic builds, the proficiency helps a lot more than any other type of builds. You want the Valor, but you also want the proficiency, so make sure you're looking out for the proficiency. But when we take a look at the pieces, so the melee piece, I use the same melee piece for both the ranged build and the heroic build. So because this skill right here, this perk at the bottom, the 128.8% critical attack damage while overcharged, it's just one of the best perks you could possibly get for Iron Man in this game. Like, I mean, you're just not gonna beat it. You could get one that has better numbers, like maybe it's above 128.8. The reason why I'm still using this, obviously, is because I haven't been able to find one with higher numbers yet. But if you do, you know, you got lucky. But this is a great, great piece of gear. The Valor on its high also has precision on it, which, even though this is a high heroic build, having a high precision is also good because you're still going to use missiles and stuff with Iron Man, so nothing bad about that at all. Moving on to the ranged, right? So the ranged, nothing really too special about the ranged. The range is honestly just here for this particular build for the high Valor and the high proficiency, so this is actually a good piece regarding the stats. Not so much with the perks. The perks aren't terrible, but this is more about the stats, right? It has a Valor of 61 and a proficiency of 59. If you can get a piece of gear that has dual Valor and proficiency, that's really good. That's really good for heroic sets. If you can't find both Valor and proficiency, you always want to go with a piece that has high Valor. You always want to go with Valor over proficiency. That's just, proficiency always helps, but Valor is what actually ups the heroic damage. So it's actually what upgrades the damage for your heroic abilities. So now with the defensive piece, right? So the defensive piece has a high Valor. Valor is 65, but the main skill that we want to look at is 18.3% chance taking damage grants a damage buff. Now, this, when it comes to getting damage buffs, I mean, I can't iterate this enough. Like, damage buffs are the best perks in this game right now. I wish it just wasn't the case, kinda, because it's really the only perk you can use for this meta that's like really good, but this is the best type of perk you can get. And then this type of version of it, where it's 18.3% chance taking damage grants a damage buff, this is the best version of this perk you're going to find, period. It's just the best. So this definitely is a very good piece when in regards to the damage buff perk and having a high Valor. This is especially the type of perk that you want to look out for. So with the heroic, high Valor and high proficiency again. So this is a very good piece of gear when it comes to the stats, specifically. As far as the perks go, not the biggest of deals with this. The perks are just kind of iffy. What you really want to go for is Valor and proficiency. When it comes to anybody with a high heroic build, honestly, the perks don't matter as much. If you're looking at like one-shotting bosses, things like that, you just want to output a high amount of damage. You want to go for Valor and proficiency, because Valor is going to make your skills, their attack damage is going to make them soar through the roof, and then the proficiency is going to make those attacks have a way higher chance of critting, and you obviously want to crit as much as possible. And then when you have a skill like this that increases the critical attack damage, well, if I already have a high chance to crit, and then I have a perk that increases the damage when I do crit, it just makes the damage all that much more incredibly high. So these are our main 4 core pieces of gear. So now let's take a look at the minor artifacts, right? So the minor artifacts, when you're doing any build, you just want the stat that you're looking for attached to an epic ISO. Now your best bet to get minor ISOs specifically with one stat attached to it, you're just going to have to check the Inhuman and the Shield faction gear vendors daily. That's just your best chance. They reset every 24 hours. They sell at least one of the epics with one stat attached to it, and that's the only place I've really found any of mine. I've tried to grind for it, and they're just extremely hard. There's nothing wrong with a rare, but if you have double rares, you're only going to be able to cap out with a power of 148, so you obviously want to try to get to 150. Now for this build, it might actually be feasible to switch to the Tactagon some way through for the most damage output possible. I still always use the Sacred Nornstone of Lethal Will. You always want to activate this damage buff. It's too huge not to. It helps way too much, especially stacking on top of the original damage buff from the original piece of gear. But when you do that, if you switch midway to the Tactagon, it'll increase your heroic stat and your melee stat, but obviously for this build your heroic stat's what matters, and it'll just help you put out that much more damage. It'll really help. But that about wraps it up for this high heroic build with Iron Man. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, feel free to leave a like, subscribe for all types of future Marvel game content, whatever. And I appreciate you for watching this video. I'll end with a clip of this build in action.